Have you ever stopped to think about what happened beyond what we could see when Jesus rose from the dead? I'm not just talking about the stone rolling away or the guards shaking with fear. I mean the unseen world, something far greater, a spiritual event that shook both heaven and the grave. Two of heaven's most powerful angels, Michael and Gabriel, stood at the tomb of God's Son. Why were they sent there? What did they witness? What role did they play? The Bible gives us glimpses, brief mentions and small clues. But what if we looked closer and connected those pieces into a clearer image? An image so powerful, so sacred, so eternal. Because what happened at the tomb wasn't just the return of Jesus. It was the beginning of God's final answer to death, and heaven didn't remain silent. So are you ready to explore what really happened when the stone moved? Are you ready to feel the depth of that moment? Before we continue, if you love diving into hidden truths of the Bible and stories that go deeper than the surface, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next Bible Mysteries episode. It's just before sunrise on the third day. Jerusalem is still wrapped in darkness. A deep stillness covers the land, like the world itself is holding its breath. The tomb is shut, cold, and sealed with a heavy stone. Roman guards stand nearby, armed, alert, and strangely uneasy. They've heard the talk, the rumors. The religious leaders demanded extra protection just in case. But the soldiers aren't afraid of people. They're uneasy because something feels different. Have you ever felt watched when no one's around? That chill up your spine? That's what they're feeling. And they're right, because they're not alone. Above them, Michael, heaven's warrior, is already present. His sword is at rest, but his eyes are locked on the tomb. Near him, Gabriel, the messenger of God, waits quietly, his face carrying the weight of all heaven's purpose. These two angels, once standing before God's throne, are now stationed outside a tomb. But not just any tomb. This is where the Son of God was laid. And this moment of silence is the last breath before everything changes. Pause for a second. Why would heaven send Michael and Gabriel for this task? Why not just any angel? Or no angel at all? Unless something massive, something sacred was about to unfold. Something so divine only heaven's finest could stand guard. Then the ground begins to shake. But this isn't a natural earthquake. There's no fault line, no natural cause. This is a supernatural event, the kind that makes even the dead uneasy. The guards scramble to stand. Dust falls, birds scatter. A force beyond human understanding is arriving. Then it begins. A wind, though no storm is near. The atmosphere pulses, and suddenly, like lightning tearing through all creation, Michael descends. Not as a whisper, but as a force of heaven. He walks to the tomb like fire in human form. His wings, massive and radiant, fold behind him. Each step shakes the earth. The soldiers can't see him, but they feel him, and that's enough to make their knees buckle. Michael isn't here to fight today. He's here to guard a holy moment that's been prepared since Eden. Then another presence arrives, Gabriel, but not the soft messenger from Bethlehem's story. This time, he brings not news of birth, but the defeat of death itself. Think about it. The same angel who once told Mary, "You will give birth to a son," now stands at a tomb, ready to declare, "He is not here. He has risen." That's not just poetic, that's divine order. As Michael and Gabriel take their positions, something else begins to happen. Something only they may have seen. The gate of death starts to tear, not symbolically, but spiritually and truly. The veil between life and death begins to open. Why? Because inside that tomb, the lifeless body of Jesus is starting to move. Pause here. Imagine what Gabriel felt, seeing Jesus crucified, mocked and tortured, and now about to rise in unstoppable glory. What did Michael, the angel who cast Satan from heaven, feel now as he watches the final blow to the kingdom of darkness? Did they cry? Did they rejoice? Did they tremble? This was not just resurrection. This was restoration. Jesus wasn't just rising. He was reclaiming authority over death and hell. And Michael knew this was the beginning of the enemy's fall. Gabriel was preparing to speak a message that would echo forever. This moment was unlike any other in eternity, and heaven sent its most trusted warriors to be there, not to act, but to witness, to guard, to honor. Then a light burst forth, not from the sun, not from anything earthly, but a glory straight from heaven. This light doesn't just brighten the room, it transforms it. It peels back the curtain of reality and reveals what's always been there, but hidden from human eyes. And this glory didn't come before resurrection, it came because of it. Inside the tomb, Jesus opens his eyes, not slowly, not weakly, with full power. He doesn't struggle, he doesn't need help, because the same Spirit that hovered over the waters in Genesis, the same breath that gave Adam life, the same word that made the stars, now breathes life into the crucified Son. And at that moment, the tomb has no power left to hold him. Outside, Gabriel descends, this time with purpose. Matthew 28:2 says, "There was a violent earthquake, for an angel of the Lord came down from heaven and rolled back the stone and sat on it." That angel was Gabriel. The same voice that whispered peace to shepherds now moves a stone with unstoppable force. He doesn't push, he doesn't strain, he touches it, and it moves. Because no seal, no guard, no empire, and no demon could stop what God had spoken. And then he sits on it. Why? In ancient times, a messenger sitting on something meant authority, ownership. Gabriel was declaring, "This tomb no longer holds him. Death has lost. The king is alive. And where's Michael? He's not at the tomb now. He's at the gates of hell." Gabriel moved the stone on earth. Michael stood guard in the spirit realm, his sword drawn, holding back the enemy. Because if the forces of darkness had the chance, they would have rushed that tomb. But they were stopped because Michael stood ready. The same Michael who once faced Lucifer himself now blocks every demon from this holy moment. And when Jesus steps out, he doesn't sneak out. He walks out with authority. Michael at his back, Gabriel at his side, and the stone, once a symbol of death, now sits beneath an angel's feet. Back to the scene. The tomb is open. Light has come. Heaven has moved. But the earth still trembles. The guards? They're undone. Matthew 28:4 says, "The guards were so afraid of him that they shook and became like dead men." They didn't faint. They didn't run. They were frozen, physically, spiritually, emotionally. They were there to guard a corpse. Now they're the ones lying lifeless. And Jesus is alive. Michael still stands, invisible to men, but towering in power. If any darkness dares come close, it will meet him first. This moment wasn't just a miracle, it was a spiritual takeover, and the angels were there to make sure it happened without interference. But now the focus shifts. The women arrive, Mary Magdalene, the other Mary, and perhaps more. They aren't expecting a miracle, they're expecting sorrow. They bring oils for burial, not celebration. Isn't that like us? We often come prepared for grief, never expecting God to change the ending. But then, they see him, Gabriel, not terrifying this time, but calm, kind. Matthew 28:6. "Do not be afraid, for I know you're looking for Jesus, who was crucified. He is not here. He has risen, just as he said." That one sentence changed everything. Gabriel, who had once told Mary she would carry the Savior, now tells mourning women, "He's alive." And it wasn't kings or priests or warriors who heard it first. It was grieving women, and they became the first messengers of the resurrection. They didn't just see an empty tomb. They heard a voice from heaven say, "God has done what no one thought possible." Michael had guarded the victory. Gabriel had announced it, and the women ran to share it. But that's not the end. While joy erupted on earth, a greater sound rose in heaven. Can you imagine the roar in heaven when Jesus stepped out of the grave? Angels had watched for thousands of years, sin, pain, death, and now they saw it end. Revelation 5 gives us a glimpse. Countless angels surrounded the throne saying, "Worthy is the Lamb who was slain." Michael joined not just as a warrior, but as a witness. Gabriel joined not just as a messenger, but as a part of the story. But while heaven celebrated, hell fell apart. Satan never saw it coming. He thought he had won. But when the tomb broke open, he realized he had lost everything. Demons screamed. Dark thrones shattered. Because death, Satan's greatest weapon, was defeated. And now the angels weren't fighting. They were singing, because Jesus rose not just for himself, but as the first of many, the beginning of a kingdom no darkness can stop. At that tomb, Michael stood guard. Gabriel rolled the stone. They didn't just witness resurrection, they stood watch as the world shifted forever. And now I ask you, if the angels moved with such power that day, do you really think they've stopped? Jesus rose and gave us his spirit. He rose and promised his return. He rose and invited you into the story. Maybe you're standing at your own tomb, buried in shame, trapped in fear, surrounded by lies. But hear this, he is not here. He has risen. And if he is alive, then nothing in your life is truly dead. Not your future, not your calling, not your identity. Michael stood to protect it. Gabriel stood to proclaim it. The women stood to share it. And now, you are standing in that same story. So ask yourself, what will you do with the empty tomb? Will you fear it? Or will you run to it and believe the same resurrection power still breathes and moves in you today? Because it does. And maybe, just maybe, angels are still standing guard over your breakthrough. Right now.